Entering the 2004 season, the New Hampshire football team hadn't reached the playoffs in a decade and hadn't won more than 6 games since 1996. Wildcats head coach Sean McDonald had a feeling that his team might be ready to make a big jump forward, but no one could have imagined where it would ultimately lead.
The year before, we went 5-7. We lost a couple tough ones. We beat Maine the last game of the year. And it just, it catapulted us into the off season. We had a fantastic quarterback, a kid named Mike Ranieri, who had thrown for, I think, 1,500 and rushed for 800, and done something no other quarterback in the league had done. And so we were, really excited about that.
And then Mike Ranieri went down, ended up tearing his ACL like 2 minutes to go before halftime in that opening game. So there was kind of nobody left, and then, and they threw me in. I remember hearing my name called, and I didn't know where my helmet was. It was by the training station. I kind of get in there. Chip calls the first play. I completely blank out. I end up calling a timeout on my first collegiate play, and him and Coach Mack were scared to death. So we ran it, the rest of the half, and we were down at halftime, kind of forced to throw the ball, in the third and fourth quarter. And end up ultimately finding a way to lead some scoring drives there and win that game. And that kind of set us up, going forward, but then ultimately we had to play Rutgers the next week, they had just beat Michigan State, which was a top 25 team at the time. So for us to go down there and upset those guys, I think that was the moment when everyone kind of realized, including myself, like, hey, we got a pretty special group here. We got a chance to surprise some people in this conference. And then obviously we went on that run.
We were just so excited to be invited to the playoffs. I think 10-3 that year, we were 6-2 in the league, and got invited. And when our name flashed, everybody went crazy. We were in the playoffs, and we were going someplace to show them what UNH was all about, New Hampshire was all about, but more importantly, the Atlantic 10, the CAA.
And New Hampshire wins their first playoff game ever.
Rick Santos would go on to win the Walter Payton Award and set numerous NCAA records while leading New Hampshire to 4 straight playoff appearances. For a kid with only one scholarship offer, Santos would help begin a run of 14 straight playoff appearances for the Wildcats with players who felt they were overlooked and had something to prove.
For us, it was always like that. It was always kind of the norm. And you look around that room, and there was a lot of kids that started one offer, no offers, some, preferred walk-ons that end up being some of the best players we ever played with. And I think that's the one thing that this place does. I think if you walk in our room, you wouldn't be able to tell who's, the full scholarship starting running back, starting quarterback, or, the student that just came here and walked on for the spring season and ended up sticking on the team. Once you're here, you're one of ours. It doesn't matter where you came from, what your background was. Let's get to work together. And I think Mac, again, set the foundation for that.
I remember getting ready for a UMass game, and we had I gave a talk on a Friday night, and I told everybody to raise their hands that got offered by the University of Massachusetts. There were 3 kids in the room that raised their hand. And, we used it as a tool to say, imagine this, we're playing them, we're not good enough to be on their thing. They can't scholarship us. That's a slap in your face, and probably a slap in my face because I'm not smart enough, to figure out. And our guys, they really lived on that and thrived on that stuff.
Coach Mack's, one of his best legacy is his ability to find student athletes off the beaten path, that felt like they were overlooked, that he saw something in them. And, the athletes reciprocated by working extremely hard, buying into his system, and just ultimately finding a way to, be productive for him and the coaching staff.
Year after year, New Hampshire made the playoffs and spent a remarkable 162 consecutive weeks ranked in the national polls. Players graduated and coaches moved to new jobs, but Coach Mack kept the goals the same every year and built a culture that lasted through tough times.
It always starts from the top with leadership, and I think Coach Mack's vision for the program, his expectation level, he always says nobody rises to low expectation. That's always stuck with me. And, that really started in 2003, that the year that we mentioned before, Coach Mack put up some signage in the locker room about, our programmatic goals, number one being a graduate, number two being a family, number three being nationally recognized, number four, going to the playoffs, number five winning a CAA championship, and number six winning a national championship. And you look at that, he put that in there, and I remember vividly that first team meeting when he set out, laid out those goals and expectations and that we were going to attain them. And when we have pretty much done all those except winning a national championship, and twice we were one game away from getting there. So I think for him to have that vision of what he thought the program was going to be and then to live it day in and day out, it's just remarkable. And everybody really, believed in him and his conviction and his leadership style.
We never talked about it truly. It was more just, kind of get to work and day by day. And I think a big part of the reason is Coach Mack. And, to me, there's no better coach in the world really than Mack was. And I think he really held the standard as being the standard, right? We didn't talk about it. We kind of went to work every day. As he would say, hard hat, lunch bucket kind of mentality, and it was day by day.
Relied heavily on the upperclassmen. And, just talking about how important it was for those guys to set the standard and to set the mood in the locker room, to set the way we practice, and we talk often about not worrying about the results, winning or losing, worrying about how we're going to get better, each week.
The juniors and seniors probably did, feel that way, that they didn't want to be the class, that was going to let that streak go by the wayside. So there's definitely some of that, but I also think it's incumbent on the leaders, starting from Coach Mack and everybody to know that we need to redefine ourselves every single year and find a way to put our own little stamp on, what we were going to leave, to this program and to everybody.
The 14-year playoff streak was not only fueled by the players and coaches on the field. The town of Durham, New Hampshire was as much a part of the Wildcats' success as the players who helped make UNH a national power.
For us, we love being at home. You're in your routine. We love playing in front of the home crowd. As you mentioned before, I think that's one of the great things about Durham is everybody buys in to what we're doing here athletically, and they love football. It's a football town, so people come out and they support us, and it's loud, and the student section's rowdy, so it's a great atmosphere.
I think back in the day, it was awesome to kind of have that, old crickety building that people would go into, and they weren't too happy to be there. But the people of Durham were pumped to be there, and just the whole Seacoast in general kind of buying into us.
I think one of the first home playoff games we ever had was against Colgate, and it was it was anticipated of having some snow, and not only did the university and the town of Durham and here, but the state embraced it. And we needed people to come to the game because we felt that it was important for the national people to see that New Hampshire was important to the rest of the state, that people would come to a playoff game. And we had about 12,000 or more that day on Thanksgiving weekend in a little bit of a snowstorm. And it was magical, to be honest with you. We had an unbelievable game. This state embraced UNH, the flagship college, university in the state, in a way that I'll never, ever, ever forget.
For McDonald, who concludes his UNH career with 157 wins and 2 National Coach of the Year awards, it was all about the people.
One easy term that can describe it, people. And it's always been that. I've had people in this community that understood what we were all about and took great pride in it. And then you go to your coaches, your trainers, your strength people, then more importantly, you go to the kids. And those kids were such a joy to coach, so much fun to be around. When they bought in, we talked about the New Hampshire man, whatever that was. Those kids that grew in the program in their 4 or 5 years here, that's what made this trip so special, was the people that we had in the program, Rob. Nothing else, nothing else could ever match it. And I was blessed, I was fortunate, and I was lucky.